Ooh.
We're live.
And we're live on YouTube. This is the first time we're doing this, so I'm not sure who's going to tune in, but we're looking forward to finding out. Thanks to everyone who is going to be joining us or going to be watching this at a later time. But as you know, we launched WuKong Fam a week ago, and now we have one person watching. Hi, please feel free to put your questions in the chat box. We are taking questions here. We have some that people have asked prior to this. So thanks so much. As you can tell, the quality is a bit grainy.
Yeah, I'm using the
because
web
we have to
cam
use the computer webcam until we get 1,000 subscribers. So help us get to 1,000.
So we can then live stream from our phones on YouTube,
which have slightly better cameras.
Yes.
But anyways, thanks so much. Welcome to the WuKong Fam, authentic look at life, love,
and everything in between.
This is just a quick snapshot of our lives together, and also because we get a lot of questions about relationships and long distance and marriage, that we thought that this would be an appropriate channel and way to kind of talk about those things that are close to our hearts and just our journey together.
Yeah. And today's, I guess, topic of conversation really is one that I think is, I guess, close to our hearts, but I guess because we've experienced it quite a fair bit in our relationship, and that is, doing doing long distance or having long distance be a key feature of your relationship. And yeah, so I think some context and some history and some backstory is that when Jiezhen and I first met some 8.5 years ago, we were both studying overseas, and we met over one of our overlapping breaks in Singapore, and that's where the relationship blossomed and grew and first developed. But it did require us, living apart. Me being in Australia and Jiezhen in the US, being separated by 7,571 miles. Also, that's a hashtag that we kind of used to chronicle our journey. It's all on Instagram. But yeah, it's been something that has been with us, or have been a feature of our relationship, even up to most recently when Jiezhen was on the East Coast finishing up grad school at Harvard, and I've been based here in Los Angeles. So I know there's so much. There are a lot of questions. I think there are a lot of things about being in a long distance relationship that people who have experienced it will be able to share. And those who might be entering one right now might want to kind of find out, I guess, tips and tricks. Long distance, we like to say never gets easier, but you can make it more manageable if you figure out ways to, nurture the relationship even through the distance. And that's what we want to talk about today.
Yeah, so I think long distance is also a really very real reality of the time that we're in right now with COVID and the pandemic. I know, so many couples that have been separated right now by the pandemic, seeing that a lot of international travel, especially even domestic travel, is limited and restricted. So, I do think a lot of our friends and loved ones and even people we don't know are experiencing this right now. So we thought it'd be a really great time to kind of share what's worked for us. Obviously, we're not experts at this. We're still learning. But having been able to survive long distance multiple times, I think we have a few tricks up our sleeves that we thought might be great to share. Should we do some questions first that people have asked, or should we, or should we just share a bit more?
Maybe we can talk before we jump into the questions. Let's maybe talk a little bit more about I guess some of the difficulties we had. Doing long distance and being apart physically. Obviously not emotionally, because I'm always very connected to my dearest wife. Even no mountains or oceans can keep me apart. I guess emotionally from my wife, but physically, of course, that always poses a difficulty. So I think maybe we can just talk a little bit and share very candidly about what were some of the things that we found challenging. But most importantly, what were some of the things that we did that worked, and I guess strategies and tips or just I wouldn't even say advice, just like things that you could do to again, make long distance a little bit more manageable, and more, I guess, be a way for you to still be close to your partner,
Yeah.
and build that relationship,
I
even
mean,
though it's through distance.
That's a question that we actually get really often, is like, how do you stay connected when you can't see each other, right? Like, and it's tough, but I think if the world that we live in right now, with technology being at our fingertips, and has made it a lot more doable. So I think, just sharing a bit about that, about staying connected and the challenges that come with that, might be a great place to start. And this is actually the first question that we got here that says, how do you stay connected so that even if you can't see each other physically often? I'll take a snapshot of this too.
Yeah, so the question, how do you stay connected even though you can't see each other physically often? I mean, a great question. I think that's a key, distinction about being physically separated, is that, I think recognizing that, we live in a time right now where I think the world is more connected on things like social media, even from a telecoms perspective. Back when we were doing long distance, it was the era of Skype, really, which compared to, let's say, our parents' generation, who might have lived and studied abroad, or spent long periods of time away from home, they were heavily reliant on snail mail, which takes forever, and you never know when or how the mail could arrive. So having technology, I guess, advance, I think, is the first starting point. Like, being very fortunate that we live in a time now where you could pick up a phone call, you could pick up a phone and not only be able to hear someone's voice, but you also see them on screen. Send them pictures, send them messages, DM them on Instagram, and connect via social media. So social media has been a great game changer and leveler for making distance not be so difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a fun fact is actually both Jared's parents and my parents have actually done long distance at some point in their relationship. And so this, long distance is not really new. My dad is from Singapore and my mom's from Malaysia, and they met through a mutual friend. And so the first few years of their, dating, courtship, they were apart. So, even as far as my parents and your parents dated, not dated, they did long distance.
Where my dad was living in India.
Yeah, and that was later on when you were in university, right?
I had just started university.
Yeah, so at different points in our lives. So it's not, long distance is not a phenomenon, but I think as more, it is more doable for people to live apart during this time. And live, work, play, travel. As I mentioned before, it is going to be part of it. So I think the first thing is just really acceptance. I think accepting the current reality that, yes, it sucks that we can't see each other. And this is how I felt when COVID broke out and Jared was supposed to come and see me.
In April.
You were supposed to come like a week. No, you were supposed to come in March. It's the end of spring break.
Yeah,
and,
March.
So I was supposed to see Jared in 2-3 weeks, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and we were really missing each other. And the reality when COVID hit and Harvard shut down their campus, and it was tough to just make that decision there. We're like, okay, for public health reasons, I'm not going to get on a plane just because I want to see my husband right now. So, I'm going to try and stay where I am at least until further notice, and just try to, quarantine myself. As I kind of like went to self-isolation, but even then we were still staying connected. And it's not easy, I think it's not easy to make that choice. I know, some of my friends who felt like it depends on where you feel more safe, right? Also, but I think for us, we knew that we could hold out a little bit longer. And, but I think it was the acceptance of that first situation that, we
accept the reality.
We can do this a little bit longer. The reality is that right now, we might not be able to see each other, when COVID happened and when the pandemic broke out, and that's, okay to accept that, and not to accept it to be like, oh my gosh,
and be defeated by it,
but accept it so you can do something about it.
And actually, that's a really good point, and something that I wanted to address as well, with regard to long distance, and knowing, and not just accepting your reality, but knowing that you can do something about it. And I think it always does help when the couple or the people in the long distance relationship have milestones that they can work towards, and can plan out, like a time, or figure out a time and place or a plan that you will be able to see the other person again. And for us, that was 3 months later, from when I was supposed to go and see her.
Yeah, and I know right now it's very
And,
uncertain. Like,
yeah.
we have a lot of friends who don't know when the flights are going to open again. They don't know when they're going to be with each other physically, and that's really tough. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't even know we had plans that I was going to come at this point in time, but we also didn't know whether that would be a reality. But even if there's a time that you can work towards, or be like, oh, when we see each other, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
Like, having a plan for when you do see each other, what are some things that you'd
You're
like to
gonna
do?
do,
Are you
yeah.
gonna cook dinner together? That was something that we really missed, which is why we started doing Cooking with Techno, which is our online cooking Instagram live that we used to do with each other. And
just having things to look forward to, I think, always helps. It does instill a sense of hope, and like being able to look forward to something, and just really knowing that that at the end of the day, you will, whatever you're experiencing will pass at some point, and just holding on to that hope that you will see your partner again, you will see your loved one again, and looking forward to making those plans of when that would happen, because
and even though you might not be sure when that's going to happen, like the
manifests.
exact date,
Yeah.
like it's about I think dreaming together, which
Yeah.
is really important. Having that common like goal, or that the date, or like the date as in like what you're going to do on a date, even if you might not have the calendar date, but what you're going to do when you see each other is like that common dream that you're envisioning together. And it really depends on how long you've been together, because for some people, you've been together for a while, you may want to dream about your life together. But if you just started dating and you just started doing long distance, then maybe it's more about like how you want to go on your first date when you do see each other. But I think it's keeping that hope alive that is so essential to long distance, because it really can get, it can be trying, for sure. It's not easy. But having that hope and knowing that you're looking forward to something, even though you're not sure when that might be, can really change the nature of the relationship. So you're building and constructive, rather than being like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like, because
and those days will happen.
yeah,
those days
there are
will
definitely
come.
days that it feels like it sucks,
it's just like it's hard, it's trying, it's challenging. But I think that's why always retaining that sense of hope is just so fundamentally important. I think not just for long distance relationships, but all relationships, and more so given this time that we find ourselves in. It's just being able to be hopeful is really something that the world needs a lot more of. Whether it's with whole societies, countries, or even just between two people.
Yeah, and I think some people also really wanted to know technical like practicalities, right? Like, how do we actually stay connected? So just a couple of things. It really, I think, and I think we spoke about this in the last Q&A a bit as well, but I think it's to find what works for you. For me and Jared, I think through the years, we've kind of found like what is an optimum amount of time that we want to be talking.
Yeah.
So we actually only have like maybe one longish call a day. Some of my friends like multiple short calls. We tend to text, and we had a 3-hour time difference when I was in Boston and Jared was in LA. And when we were in college, we had
15 to 17 hours.
15 to 17 hour time difference. So we kind of done like both ends of the extreme. But this time I would be waking up 3 hours before Jared would. And, I'll message him when he wakes up, when I wake up, and he'll message me when we wake up. And we always say, and we say this to each other in person, and we also do it online when we say, good morning, I love you, which is like a little...
The first thing that you say, I say to start my day. The first words out of my mouth.
So either text it to me, or like I will call him, he'll call me, or or something, or send a voice note. But that's usually the first thing that we start each other. And it's like I think building rituals and routines into the day also really helps, or into the weeks, right? So we would do that in the morning, and through the day we'll probably just exchange texts, and on WhatsApp and stuff, but nothing like very big. I usually call you maybe around lunch. Like my lunch used to be the best time. So we kind of worked out when I first started classes when might be the best time to talk. And that obviously changed, sometimes with like through the year, depending on the schedule and the seasons, it would change.
Yeah, and like I mean, things also like like love, knowing your love language. I think that was the washing machine.
Oh, okay.
Knowing that your other partner's love language is also incredibly important. I think for Jiezhen, I know like she likes handwritten notes.
Yeah,
she likes
I'll show you some of the
letters,
cards next time.
and like I would, even like this last 9-10 months when she was in grad school, like I would make sure I would write to her at least monthly. Like she receives a card from me, or a letter or a note, and that's just knowing what affirms her and affirms how I can express love to her, and for me it's quality time. So that's why knowing when I can speak to her next, generally gets me motivated through the day of when I know at this time we'll both be free and we can like talk to each other, update each other, and like just stay connected really. Because and going back to what I mentioned before, being able to FaceTime someone, or like WhatsApp video them, it just makes it so much better than just a traditional phone call, or just sending text. But just knowing that there is that time to connect in everyone's day while you're doing the long distance is just really really good.
Yeah, and I think going off like, so knowing each other's love languages, I think is also a way to, it's knowing how you like to be loved, so you can communicate what you need from your partner. So Jared did not grow up writing letters to his friends. Like I guess you went to a boys' school, but boys, they apparently did not write letters. I used to write letters to my friends. My mom used to write letters to me. Like, we all wrote letters to each other, and I really like all those little notes. So it was something that he learned to do over time, and I learned also to always make time for him, because quality time was very important. So you learn how to communicate what you need. Like, so I learned to say, Jared, hey, this is something that means a lot to me. And it wasn't something that just happened immediately, and something that, he did like immediately and stuck to it, but it took some time to adapt to it, and giving your partner that grace and that time as well, just to allow that to happen and evolve in your relationship.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think that's how you can stay connected during a time like this, and it's a good thing to I guess have front of mind, not just for a long distance relationship that may be romantic, but just relationships in general. Just how do you stay connected with people during this time of social distancing, quarantine, with like the pandemic happening, like not being able to physically connect with people. Like it's really a skill. It's building up a set of muscles and skill sets of how do you connect with the people that you care about, or with others during this time of social distancing, and the need to be remote from other people and be physically distant.
Yeah, no, I think those are really great points. And because a lot of the lessons in a good long distance relationship, or things that we try to practice while we were doing long distance, are very similar things that we do in our everyday relationship when we are together. I think it is something that is transferable. These are things that we value as a couple together, and whether or not we are physically together or apart, those things are definitely things that help us to help set up our marriage and relationship to thrive.
And I think another thing that I'm just thinking back to some anecdotes, like over communication is actually, especially over distance, is sometimes better than under communication. It's actually way better than under communication. And I used to have this running joke that I would exhaust all lines of communication right, in order to like get Jiezhen. So like sometimes if I text, I could try and call, I could drop an email, I could send a Facebook message, especially if knowing that she's might be in a remote part of the world with maybe limited access to internet. Just knowing that your partner is thinking about how can I make sure he or she gets the message.
And I think that
is kind of interesting.
And I think you haven't had to do that as much in recent times.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is because I've learned to be more accountable as well. So
it's like stay on one platform.
So I think part of long distance that really works is just having a common agreement of like, which platform are we going to use? Like sometimes obviously, I'll send him a message on WhatsApp and then we'll be on Instagram or like, there, and we kind of know that maybe those two are our main platforms that we use. And that's kind of like the common understanding, right? Because I think what happens is that sometimes expectations, people use different things and the expectations are not communicated, and then you end up doing multiple things. So like he'll send me like I think especially when I would not respond. So I think being responsive is quite important. I know not everyone likes texting, which is fine too. It's not like you have to text throughout the whole day, but just know that if there's something important that you can get hold of someone. So normally I know if like Jared calls me, it's probably going to be pretty important. Or like, sometimes I call him randomly when I'm walking too. But if he calls me, I will pick up, or at least I know to call him back immediately. If it's a text, maybe I can send it.
There was a period of time when Jiezhen, especially this is when we were doing long distance in college, and it was the inverse time zones. So like my morning was her night, her night was my morning, and there would be times when she would just fall off to sleep. And I'll be just
I feel like passing out.
And then I'll be like, you just need to send me like 3 Zs or 3 Zs.
That wouldn't work. If I had the brain clarity,
like if you were really like gonna be like passing out, just pick up your phone, just type in Z, and I know, okay, that's it.
Okay, but that never worked because if I had the brain capacity to send like Z's
sleeping,
and like
or just
sleeping.
like one word, like
Yeah, if
sleeping.
I knew that, I could have like probably typed more, right? It's not like I didn't have energy to type it. It's just I tend to
but you see, I think the point is
knowing each other's rhythms.
And also knowing that things unfortunately do get accentuated over distance, and that could work in good or bad, right? Sometimes a small gesture that you would do for someone in person, and if you're able to kind of convey that same emotion or gesture via distance, that might actually go a very long way for the person receiving it, right? And similarly, something that you might think is, I guess, a bit more trivial, right? Could be blown out of into bigger proportion.
So I think good things, bad things, everything becomes accentuated. So being especially mindful of that, I think, is really important. Someone not responding to a message if you're I don't know if you're going to see each other tonight is maybe not as big a deal as like, I don't know when I'm going to see you and you're not responding. And so just being aware of that, I think just like, and it's hard, especially if it's a first time doing long distance or you just started dating and you're not entirely sure each other's habits yet. It does take time to do that and get used to each other's rhythms, but building your own rhythms and traditions together, a couple. So, as I mentioned, we say good morning, I love you. It's just a text. It doesn't, you don't need to like talk to him for 2 hours every day.
Although when we do, it's nice.
Okay. Yeah. He really likes, Jared isn't just like quality time. He likes quantity time.
Quality with quantity.
Yes.
The best.
So, and then we used to cook together on Instagram Live. So our friends could also tune in when we were apart. Because we wouldn't be able to cook together. So that was a nice way. We never did the watch movies together thing.
I think watching movies is a bit...
Some people really enjoy it. Some of our friends...
Because you don't really get to interact
some of
watching a movie.
That's true. But I think some people like being the presence, right? Yeah. So like we have some friends as well who enjoy like leaving their FaceTime or, video call on, like while they're just doing other things, like doing work. We never really did that. I think we kind of like just talk, be fully present when we're there, and then like turn off.
I think that kind of helped facilitate, I guess, the lifestyle that we were living also.
Yeah, because we're very full schedules.
Yeah, very full schedules, but also, I mean, when we were doing long distance in school, like, we were very heavily involved in school, like our communities. And like, I think in a way, the time difference did help allow us to live, spend our full day doing whatever it is we do, and then, connecting at the right time,
and I think
with each other.
That's a really good point, because I don't think long distance should
it's meant to be,
it's actually really freeing, because I'm not gonna lie, like the fact that I was living alone for this last year at Harvard, meant that like I didn't have to worry about Jared having dinner. Like, do I need to make dinner? Do I need to like make sure that he eats like breakfast or drink water, which I kind of do right now, so he doesn't drink enough water. That cheeky smile. I don't
water,
have to.
Guys. It's important.
Yeah, drink water. But I didn't have to worry about someone else's schedule in the same way that, now I'm like, hey, what time do you want to have dinner? What time do you have a call? And they're constantly syncing up, which is part of a relationship anyways. But I think, doing long distance and gave me a lot of freedom in my day of like how I could stay up late working and I wouldn't have to worry that I was keeping someone else up. I could stay up late, or wake up super early and do my yoga and not worry that I'm going to wake him up when I get out of bed, which I mean, I kind of get up anyways, right? You don't really wake up. But so I think it's just finding those rhythms that work for you, and also embracing the perks that come with a long distance relationship too, because it's easy to feel like, oh my god, we're here and stuff, but it really allows you to have a lot of freedom. And then when you do come back together, you have such a strong base for communication and trust and commitment that I think sometimes takes longer to build in if you're seeing each other all the time. Yeah.
Were there any other questions?
Yeah, we do have other questions. Let's see. Let's switch over. Okay. The other question that we had was, when I'm away for too long, I feel I forget what it's like to be in a relationship. Is this normal? Yes, I think it's normal. It's kind of like, oh, I'm like a free bird, which I kind of felt again this year. And was really interesting because when we first did long distance, we were just dating, right? So that was like, there was still some uncertainty. But this year, we've been married for like 2 years when we started doing this bout of long distance relationship. And it was different because I think, there was a lot more certainty, like, okay, we're in this together, we're in this for the long haul. And so that kind of helped. But I think it's easy because, suddenly your whole day doesn't have to be planned around someone anymore. We're not trying to constantly align schedules.
Yeah.
Oh, Google Calendar, by the way, or any kind of calendar app you use, and syncing schedules, share your calendar is just a very practical, technical thing. And like, not just share calendar when you're free and busy. I actually let Jared log into my calendar when I was working, even to see what I was doing, so that he would know, like, when it was like, if I'm having lunch, yeah, you can call me, but if I'm in class, please don't call. Like, so it's not just busy and available, but sharing the calendar and doing that, I think, helped. But yeah, did you ever forget you were in a relationship during long distance?
To the extent that, like, you're only looking after yourself, when you're physically apart. I think, and I think that's something, even in the last 2 months when Jiezhen moved here, we've also been working through, like, how do we align our schedules, how do we align our time, and I mean, it never occurred to me that, suddenly, like, I forget what it's like to be in a relationship. But you kind of, like, you don't have to make some choices for and behalf of another person
that you might have to
when you're physically together.
You don't have to like plan Saturday date night, or like figure out when are you free. You can kind of just have a recurring thing on the calendar, which is,
or like even something simple, like, what time I go to sleep, for example. I've been sleeping a lot earlier.
You sleep so late when I wasn't
Jiezhen's here, and like, which wasn't great for my health. It wasn't great for many things, right? But having that other person, physically there, to kind of like sync up in terms of a routine and, like, build habits with, that to me is, like, I think one of the big differences of being apart versus being together. But never did I, question, like, why am I in this relationship? Or, it goes back to what we were talking about before. You want to maintain that emotional bank, right? Like that emotional connectedness, which will, which the physical, when you're physically together, you can catch it. It can catch up, and you can catch up for lost time.
Pick up where you
left off without feeling like you have to kind of go.
Okay, although I will admit, and we can talk about this another time, just how like there were moments, but it took me some time to get used to the fact that we were physically together. And like, do you remember?
We're in popcorn.
Yeah.
Foot massages come in very handy in times of crisis.
It's just very stressful.
Interpret that how you will, but literally, foot massage always does help make the situation a little bit more
easeful,
more eased, and less stress.
Yeah, well, we're always learning, and I think there are moments that maybe you don't have to think about, a lot of the logistical things that you might have to if you're together, like syncing out schedules, seeing each other's families, and all those things. But I think, again, it's just going over what we talked about, just acceptance, I think accountability, dreaming together, creating rhythms, routines, finding what works for you, because what worked for us might not work for someone else. So I think sharing, but knowing that you're on this journey together, I think is key.
And
it's
looking
so
forward to
essential.
milestones.
Yeah. So, and I know now that's a bit tough, but we used to be able to like try and book the next ticket when we were together so that we know when we'd see each other next.
Yeah.
But we are reaching 30 minutes, and so we just wanted to wrap this up really nicely, and we look forward to doing more live sessions. Make sure you hit subscribe,
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us more questions or more topics you'd like us to cover, and we hope to see you next time.
Yep. See you soon, and catch you later. And hope everybody has a great weekend and week ahead.
All right. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Stay home. Wear your mask.
Take care of each other.
Take care of each other, and continue to love each other in this time, especially. We all need it.